All right. So again, good evening po sa ating lahat and please be ready. So I'll be sharing my screen. I believe my screen is visible po.
Yes po.
Yes po.
Sige po.
Yes po.
So okay, salamat po. So this time, let us now, we will now answer or give solutions as well to items 121 to 150. Let's have number 121. Which best describes a school's assessment program? Is it continuous, diagnostic, and functional? Sophisticated, normative, and comprehensive? Diagnostic, functional, and standardized? Or D, continuous, functional, and sophisticated? Please comment your answer in our chat po. Yes po, this is actually recorded. Thank you. So, okay, someone said letter A. I see some letter C. So far, I could see either A or C. Okay, someone answered letter D. Okay, let's see which one is correct. Okay, tingnan po natin. Now, take note po, the technique here is, oh, sorry. Give me a second. Okay, saglit lang. The technique here is actually eliminating some choices po, no? Or some, let's say some terms that we are not sure, that we are sure na mali. Take note po. For example, is the school's assessment usually sophisticated? Not necessarily po. It's not usually difficult to administer, especially if one has quizzes, for example. It's not usually normative. And this thing, usually we have criterion reference po. It's not really sophisticated. So everything that has sophisticated is in fact incorrect. So it's either A or C. But take a look at letter C. Diagnostic, functional, and standardized. The thing is, it's not really standardized po yung ating mga assessment sa school. Bakit? Kapag sinabi po kasi nating standardized, usually po, no, dadaan po yan sa maraming process. Like it will undergo, say, validity, it will undergo measures of reliability, and it will also be pilot tested and so on. The best answer here is actually letter A. It is continuous in the sense that when we assess students, we simply assess not only once, but we do series of assessments. It's diagnostic also, since we would like to know also if students learn or know something about the lesson, or if they know something about the topic. And it's also serving the function of providing feedback to the teacher. Hence, the correct answer here is letter A. So to everyone who answered letter A, okay, congratulations po. You got it right. Okay. It's okay po, it's okay. Next, let's have item 122. Authentic assessments are said to be more student-structured than teacher-structured. What does this mean? Authentic assessment allows more student choice in determining what is presented as evidence of proficiency. It's limited to the presentation of evidence of learning that is designed by the teacher, limits presentation of evidence of learning to that which is acceptable to the teacher, or D, it allows students to choose the topics to learn over which to show proof of learning. Okay, tignan po natin yung mga sagot ninyo. Okay, I could see someone answered letter A. Okay, someone also answered A. Some answered letter C. Okay. So, what is the best, or what is the correct or the best answer here? We have to remember the definition of authentic assessment for learning. A real-world assessment is meant to focus on the impact of one's work in real or realistic and often messy context po. Because in a real world, in real world, authentic assessment, there may or may not be mere writing or a hands-on task, but the assessment is meant to focus on the impact of one's work in real or realistic contexts. So usually we would like to pattern our assessment to the real world as much as possible. A real world task requires students to deal with the messiness of real or simulated settings, purposes, and audience, as opposed to a simplified and clean academic task to no audience but the teacher evaluator. In authentic assessment, as much as possible, no, since authentic assessment is actually student-centered, the best answer here is letter A. It allows more student choice in determining what is presented as evidence of proficiency. For letter B, it is limited to the presentation of evidence designed by the teacher. No, it's more learner-centered than teacher-centered. Letter C is also incorrect because it's actually as much as possible up to the learner, not really up to the teacher. It's more of students. Letter D allows students to choose the topics to learn over, which to show proof of learning. Not necessarily po. Remember, as of the moment, we have our most essential learning competencies. We could actually have those competencies, but we could allow students choice in determining the particular evidence of proficiency that will be assessed from them. Hence, letter A po again, yung ating tamang sagot. Okay, so sa lahat po lang sumagot ng A, okay, thank you. Good job. But if not, it's okay po. It's a learning experience for everyone. Okay, 123. Teacher Zen made her test considerably longer. Generally, the longer the test, the higher is its. A, okay, good job. Interpretability, usability, reliability, or validity. Please comment your answer po for item 123. Letter A daw. May nagsasabing letter C. Okay, letter, again, no? Parang napako ata tayo. Yung iba sa atin C, yung iba sa atin A. All right. Who among you got it right? Check po natin. Tandaan po natin, ha? Letter A, I'm sorry, but A and B are actually incorrect. It's not about how to interpret it. It's about interpretability or how will it be used. But we have to consider it either reliability or validity, which is which. Let us first compare the two. Let's have reliability versus validity. When we speak about reliability, it is all about consistency of measurement, or the degree to which an instrument measures the same way each time it is used under the same conditions with the same subjects po. And when we speak about validity, it is the strength of your conclusions or inferences or propositions. In validity, you ask yourself, does your instrument or does your assessment measure what it intends to measure? So we have what we call content, criterion, or construct validity, and they are different from one another. And I believe you are familiar with them since you have them in your professional education subjects also. To make it simple also in psychological assessment or even in our usual assessment, Reliability, it's all about consistency. And validity, it's all about if your results, for example, satisfy your objectives, or if you are able to measure what you really intend to measure. Now, ang tanong, is it more of reliability if you have longer items, considerably longer number, or the longer test? Or is it really about validity? And the correct answer is letter C, reliability. Take note, ha? It's not always true, but generally speaking, the longer the test, of course, considerably longer, the reliability of the test actually becomes higher in general. Tama po. And validity, it's not. So letter C po, yung ating tamang sagot. Notice nyo po, for example, bakit kaya halimbawa magbibigay ka ng isang quarterly examination? Saan yung mas reliable? 5 items o 10 items? Di ba usually yung 10 items, usually no, mas reliable siya siguro compared sa 5 items lang. But again ha, considerably longer po. Basta yung kaniyang haba ng test mo ay akma naman talaga para sa learners natin. Okay, so letter C, you got it right. 124. Item number 7 got a difficulty index of 0.01. What does it imply about item number 7? Is it very easy, very difficult, moderately easy, or moderately difficult? Okay, sure na raw, sabi ni Sir Errol, na letter B. Okay, let's see if B is correct. Okay, take note. We have different interpretation of the difficulty index. It could also depend from one author to another. If you would consult the interpretation provided by one author, it could be different from the interpretation that other authors would give. So for now, regardless of who the author you are subscribing to, the 0.01 actually false, no? Kung i-convert mo po siya sa percent, 0.01 times 100% will give you 1. Tama po ba? And you could see that since 1 belongs to the 20 and below range, then that said item is very difficult. And you could also check it. You could review on your own about this one po, no? And so the correct answer here is indeed letter B, very difficult. So this is actually telling us nakakaunti lang po yung nakakuha ng tamang sagot sa item na ito. Kaya po mababa yung kanyang difficulty index. Difficulty index ranges from 0 to 1 or in percent, 0 to 100% nga po pala. The lower the value, the closer the value of the difficulty index to 0, the item has a greater difficulty, for example. The nearer the difficulty index to 1, the easier the item is perceived by the learners. Okay, so far, magaling po. So far, okay po tayo. 125. Mrs. Gonzalez considers the ranking of the total scores of learners as basis for giving grades. Rank 1 got 99, rank 2 got 97, and so on. Which of the following concepts is involved here? Is it criterion referenced, norm referenced, averaging, or D, cumulative? Please comment your answer po. Sabi ng isa ninyong classmate, B, sir. Kasi B and 124, hehe, pero parang B talaga. Okay, so some of you answered letter C. Many of you answered letter B. So, take note po natin. we actually have two. No? We have what we call norm reference testing and criterion reference testing. When we speak about norm reference testing po, no? In norm reference testing, the performance of a learner, for example, is compared to the performance of others, or say the performance of one is compared to the class average or compared to others. Like how well does a person how well is his scores or how well is his standing in relation to others? That's actually reference uh, norm reference po yan. Kapag sinabi naman po natin criterion reference, so there is actually a standard na sineset ng guro. For example, out of 100, let's say if the passing is 75, if the learner reach 75 or above, then that learner passes the assessment. If a learner did not reach the passing score of 75, then the learner did not pass the test. Whereas in norm reference testing po, usually yung teacher, dyan siya nagtra-transmute. Minsan, no? Dyan siya nag-a-adjust ng grades basing kung sino yung highest score. So norm reference testing po yon. That's why the correct answer here is norm reference. Letter B. Kasi parang may conversion factor po siya, no? Regardless kung ano man yung score nila. Minsan nga, possible na hindi siya pasado sa criterion reference, pero dahil siya ang rank 1, pasado siya sa norm reference. Okay, yun po yung kinagandahan. Okay po. All right. 126. Which best explains assessment as learning? Let us read first one. The use of a scoring rubric makes specific to the learner the ideal expected output. 2. The use of a scoring rubric gives the learner an opportunity for self-assessment. 3. A teacher who periodically assesses learners' understanding ensures learning. Is it A, 1 and 2, B, 2 only, C, 1 only, or D, 1, 2, and 3? Okay. I could see that some of you answered A, B, or D, but no one answered letter C, I guess. Okay. Tama nga kaya? Okay. Before we give the answer, let us have these three. When we say assessment for learning, it enables teachers to use information about students' knowledge, understanding, and skills to inform their teaching. The teachers provide feedback to students about their learning and how to improve. For example, if the teacher is doing formative assessment, like tinukso niya, or let's say, tinawag po niya yung isang student, at saka yung student alam yung sagot, so probably the teacher would say, okay, this child knows the concept. Or let's say, if the teacher called on him or her, and the student or the learner does not know how to respond, or don't know the answer, then at least it gives feedback to the teacher po, no? So yan po yung ating assessment for learning. Pag sinabi po nating assessment as learning, it involves students in the learning process where they monitor their own progress po. They ask questions and practice skills. The students use self-assessment and teacher feedback to reflect on their own learning, consolidate their understanding, and work towards learning goals. And kapag sinabi naman po nating assessment of learning, this is usually now summative by nature. In here, it assists teachers to use evidence of student learning to assess student achievement against learning goals and standards. So like when a teacher gives a quarter test or a task that is graded, that is assessment of learning. So balikan po natin. Saan kaya sa tatlong ito ang assessment as learning? It is letter
B,
letter
sir.
A po.
A? 1 and 2.
1 and 2 po. Okay. May nakakuha ba ng letter A? Okay, meron. Meron po. I think kakaunti lang. But it's okay po. So letter A po. Okay. So far, so good. That's why po, importante po na maibigay po natin yung rubric sa kanila. At least po, no, they know what is expected of them. All right. May I proceed po? Or may tanong pa? Okay, sige. Salamat po. What kind of standard can be achieved by majority of the learners? Is it what you call relative standard, multiple standard, absolute maximum standard, or absolute minimum standard? Okay, please comment. Okay, sige, let's wait. D daw, sabi ni Sir KB. I could see also a lot of D's. I could see some C's or B. Okay, let's define them po. Ano nga ba yung ibig sabihin ng mga standards na ito? At check po natin kung nakuha po ninyo. Kapag sinabi po nating absolute maximum standard, this standard is usually attained by a few students. Usually, this standard, no, maa-attain siya ng mga students natin, mga bright learners natin. And usually po, hindi naman po always, medyo kakaunti lang po sila. Okay. Letter 126 po is letter A po, Ma'am Julibet. Okay, thank you. Now, ano naman yung absolute minimum standard? Ito po yung kadalasang nakukuha ng majority ng ating learners. Halimbawa po, no, kapag nag-set ka po ng isang, nagbigay ka po ng isang test, let's say out of 100, let's say around 97 or 95 of them reach this standard. Example lang po yan. When we speak about relative standard, where it is where the competence of one, oh, sorry. Saglit lang po, anong nangyari? Okay. When we say relative standard po, it is wherein the competence of a learner is compared to that of the other. Like, okay, si A, mas magaling siya kay B. Okay, si Stella performs better than Manuel, for example. And kapag sinabi po nating multiple standard, the level of performance or competencies is used, and usually there is ranking involved, no? It could be a combination of absolute maximum standard and absolute minimum standard and relative standard to determine growth and pattern. So yung multiple standard po, kino-combine na po natin if possible yung tatlong standards na ito. So ano po yung tamang sagot? Ito po ay letter D po. Absolute minimum standard. Okay, so D, good job po. Okay, so far, so good po tayo. 128. Okay. Why is integrative assessment preferable to discrete point tests? A, it can diagnose the strengths and weaknesses of students. Is it B, can describe what students can do one at a time? Is it C, can measure various skills of students? Or D, can employ moderately difficult items? Okay, what do you think? Okay, letter A daw. May nagsasabi namang letter C. Okay, mukhang marami ata yung sumagot ng letter C. Meron ding sumagot ng letter B. Can describe what students can do one at a time. Okay, but I think letter D is not answered by anyone or by us, I guess. Now, let's have the following. When we speak about integrative assessment is assessment design that seeks to combine students' learning from multiple modules and or levels into a single assessment. Such assessments are synoptic, meaning that students are required to make authentic connections between knowledge and learning that span multiple modules and topics into one. To make it simple po, kapag sinabi po nating integrative assessment, ito po ay nag-i-involve ng many skills na natutunan ng learners natin to apply that and apply their learning into that particular assessment. So therefore, is it letter A, diagnose the strengths and weaknesses of students? No. Is it letter B, can describe what students can do one at a time? No, because it's in fact a collaborative effort. You do not usually measure them one at a time, but usually you integrate them at once if possible. Is it letter C? Yes. Can measure various skills of students. Letter D is not. So C po yung ating tamang sagot. At sa lahat po ng sumagot ng C, you got it right. Nakuha po natin okay. Sige po. 129. Higher scores in test A are associated with high scores in test B. There is blank, it should be high lang po sana, sorry, high po. There is blank correlation between the two tests. Is it a negative, a positive, no, or absolute? Okay, sabi ni Ma'am Imelda po, letter B daw, positive correlation daw. Same answer was given by KB, by Ma'am Cherry, and a lot more. Yes po, Sir Raul. May question po kayo? Mr. Mapalad, do you have a question po?
I know, sir.
Yes po.
No question, sir.
Naka-raise po kasi
Sorry,
kayo
sir.
sa Zoom po. Oh, it's
Napindot
okay.
lang po
Sige.
siguro.
Sige, sir. No problem po. Okay, and the correct answer here is dan 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 dan. Ito po yung ilan sa mga correlations natin. When we say positive correlation, it looks like this po, something like this, similar to this. If two variables x and y move in the same direction, meaning to say as x increases, y also increases, or if x decreases and y also decreases, they go together in the same direction, that's an example of positive correlation. Kapag sinabi naman po nating negative correlation, magkaiba po yung direction nila. If there is the higher the x, the lower the value of the y, or vice versa. The lower the value of x, the higher the value of y becomes. So that's an example of negative correlation po. Negative correlation occurs if two variables x and y move in opposite direction. That is, if one rises, the other falls, and if one falls, the other rises, then it is a negative correlation. And speaking of no correlation po, no, or yet let's say the correlation is zero or nearly zero, you cannot actually tell that if there is a line, for example, that contains these points. There's no line of best fit. Hence, sabi kanina, the higher in A, higher in B, they go together. So it is letter B, a positive correlation. Okay, thank you po. I hope na nakuha po natin yung explanation. All right. Number 130. Why is research important in mathematics education? A, DepEd demands that teachers do research. B, research can get one promoted. C, research gives teachers prestige. Or D, research can help improve the quality of education. I think some of them can be considered, but what do you think po is the best answer here? Okay, I think I can agree more with you. We have to go with letter D. DepEd demands that teachers do research. Actually po right now, no? So teachers are highly encouraged to do action research, particularly the master teachers in DepEd. And of course, the teacher 1, 2, 3 are also highly encouraged to do research. Also for promotion purposes. And of course, if one is a published researcher, of course, it gives you prestige. But the best thing here is among those extrinsic motivations or extrinsic stuff or outside stuff, we have to aim to improve the quality of education through research. So indeed, letter D po yung ating tamang sagot. Okay. 131. Why is it important for a teacher to make a table of specifications? Is it A, to make sure that test items are in accordance to what was covered? B, to make sure that the test is reliable? C, to make sure that learners will be able to get high scores? Or D, to document the test? What is the best answer here? Okay, marami po sa atin ang sumagot ng A. Kapag sinabi po nating table of specifications or TOS, no? It is also called your test blueprint. And the purpose of the TOS is to ensure that there exists a correspondence between the learning objectives for the students and the content of the course, to ensure proper organization of assessment procedures that best represent the material covered in the teaching or learning process. And of course, the TOS would actually tell us, if possible, no, it's actually helping us to establish the validity of our test. And take note po ha, tandaan po natin, generally, if a test is valid, then most likely it is reliable. However, the other way around is not true po. A reliable test does not necessarily imply a valid test. So validity is more important than reliability in general. Although both are important, but validity is usually given more importance po. So the correct answer here is indeed letter A, to make sure that test items are in accordance to what was covered in class. Okay. 132. Which of the following is done to improve the quality of multiple choice tests? Is it item analysis, difficulty index computation, discrimination index computation, or the plausibility of distractors? Let's see po, ano kaya the best answer dito? Okay, may sumagot ng D. May sumagot ng A. Okay, 132A, may sumagot ng B. Okay, so saan kaya dito yung pinaka-panalong answer? Tandaan po natin, the correct answer here is, or the best answer here is, item analysis. When analyzing the test items, we have several questions about the performance of each item. Some of these questions include, are the items congruent with the test objectives? Like it's more about the validity. Are the items valid? Do they measure what they're supposed to measure? So there are different types of validity, no? Face validity, construct, your criterion, and so on. Are the items reliable? Are they really consistent? Do they measure consistently? How long does it take to an examinee to complete each item? Do you think that time also is enough for them to answer all of your questions? What items are most difficult to answer correctly? So you have to use your, for example, you will compute for the difficulty index. What items are easy? Are there any poor performing items that need to be discarded? Like you have to compute for the discrimination index, you check about the difficulty index, and also, in fact, no, it's letter A. In fact po, yung ating difficulty index, yung B, C at saka D po are some of the things that we are doing in item analysis. So the best thing here is a general term that covers the three other choices or options. We go with letter A, item analysis. So sa lahat ng A, I think marami po kayong sumagot ng A. If you answered A, di wow, congrats po. Okay, dumako po tayo sa 133. A teacher wishes to determine the reason why the student employed a particular solution to a problem. Which is the best thing to use? Will you go for questionnaire, observation, interview, or experimentation? Sige nga po, paki-comment. Okay, letter C daw. Interview. And if you answered interview among these four options, then let's see if you're right. Let's have your data collection. When we speak about interview, there is an interaction between the interviewer and the respondent. So usually the interviewee or the interviewer gathers data from the interviewee through series of questions, for example, by asking questions. And for questionnaire, it's usually you are giving like this, no? So usually there could be no interaction between facilitator and respondent about the subject matter. And usually the respondent could be the one to answer or do the checking, as long as, again, that the respondent is literate, and is able to accomplish your questionnaire. For of course, experimentation, you are familiar with that. Usually you carry out a controlled study. You have a controlled study in a controlled environment. And you are also manipulating some variables, no, to arrive at certain results. And for observation naman po, it is a scientific method of investigation that makes possible use of all senses to measure or obtain outcomes or responses from the object of study. And usually, observation po, no, could be used for behavioral or attitudinal studies. And I believe also that if you wish to determine or know the thought process behind the answer of a student, then it's better to go with interview here. Letter C. Okay. So, I think marami po sa atin ang sumagot ng C. Okay. I think hindi po tayo mag-experiment kasi in this case, gusto lang po natin malaman yung behind the solution. So, I think the best answer here is interviewing po. You could observe, but if you wish to determine the answer or the rationale behind what you observed, of course, interview is the best po. Okay. 134. To determine the samples for her study, teacher Mia made use of drawing of lots. What sampling technique is she employing? Simple random, convenience, purposive, or cluster? Okay, Sir Jason said simple random, letter A daw. Okay, and I think the list is still going, no? And I could see that many of you answered letter A. Okay, let's define each of them. When we say simple random sampling, each element of the population is actually given an equal chance of being included in the sample. So you could have a table of random numbers, or you could have the lottery method, the fishbowl method, wherein you will get one from the fishbowl or to determine who your samples will be. When we speak about convenience sampling naman po, it is sometimes known as grab or opportunity sampling or accidental or haphazard sampling. Usually, this involves the sample being drawn from that part of the population which is close to hand, that is readily available and convenient. Usually po, kung sino po yung mga mas malapit sa researcher, and of course, no, even though malapit siya, if possible, if they could satisfy the objectives of the research, then they could serve as samples of your study. That is an example of convenience sampling. Yung mga malapit yung kunin mo, yung mga madaling ang kunan ng data. Kung mahirap kunan yung data yung iba dahil malayo, so you exclude them from your from as part of your sample. Kapag sinabi po nating judgmental or purposive sampling, the researcher chooses the sample based on who they think would be appropriate for the study based on the established criteria. If they knew someone who could serve as respondent, given that particular person is also also satisfies the conditions in his study, then that person could be part of your sample. That's judgmental or purposive sampling. If they satisfy the criteria, pick him or her. If they don't satisfy, don't get them. And the fourth one, cluster sampling, you do this when natural groupings are evident in a statistical population and a sampling frame is not available. So usually po, yung basis ng cluster sampling ay geographical location. And you select clusters rather than individual elements. Halimbawa po, may doon sa building A, may building B, building C, building D, building E. So, nag-draw lots ka. Kaya ako kukuha ng respondents ko. Building A kaya, building B, building C, building D, or building E. So, let's say, nag-draw lots ka, nakuha mo building A. Okay. So, dahil nakuha mo building A sa draw lots, if possible, lahat ng respondents mo, if possible, no, could be taken from building A. That's cluster sampling. And based on this, simple random is the correct answer. Letter A po. Basta drawing of lots po ha, simple random po yan. All right. 135. Teacher Angelica made use of information found in math books for her class. Data found from such sources is an example of blank data. Did you go for primary, secondary, tertiary, or null? Secondary daw, sabi ni Sir PJ, ni Ma'am Alchin, ni Ma'am Imelda, ni Ma'am Cherry, ni RM, okay, at marami pang iba. Pero may ilan din sa atin ang sumagot ng primary data. Now, primary nga ba ito o secondary? So that we will not get confused, when here are some sources of primary and secondary data. Primary data could be out of someone's observations, personal interviews, when one uses questionnaires na gawa for example, diaries, autobiographies, that is primary data. Primary data is something that is collected, for example, by the person or the researcher himself. Primary data is usually unpublished, and this is first-hand information. Kapag sinabi po nating secondary data, ito po yung mga data na nakukuha natin sa books, newspapers, encyclopedia, journals, magazines, or research studies po, no, that were conducted by others. So with this po, knowing na kinuha niya sa book, math book, books po actually fall in secondary data. Hence, the correct answer is letter B. Okay. Secondary po. Nakuha po natin yung explanation. Did we understand po?
Yes,
Or
sir.
do we have,
Thank you.
okay, or do we have, thank you po. If we have
Yes,
any
sir.
clarification po, feel free to chat. Okay, marami pong salamat. Okay. Pero kung nag-interview siya sana, so primary yon. Next, which of the following sequences in doing research is correct? So I have here 4. 1 is problem identification. 2 is stating conclusion. 3 is data analysis, or 4 is data gathering. Did you go for A, 1, 3, 4, 2? B, 1, 2, 4, 3? Letter C, 1, 2, 3, 4? Or letter D, 1, 4, 3, 2? Okay. Marami po sa atin ang sumagot ng letter D. Tama nga ba si D?
Tama ako.
Okay. Yes, actually po, no? So nauuna po usually yung ating dito po sa 4 na to, nauuna ang problem identification. After you identify the problem, usually, no, meron ka pang hypothesis niyan and so on. Pero after hypothesis mo, for example, you set up your experiment, you have your data gathering. After mo mag-gather ng data, analyze mo yon. And after mo siyang ma-analyze, that's the time that you could formulate or state your conclusion po. Hence, tama nga naman kayo. Letter D po yung tamang sagot. 1, 4, 3, 2. Magaling, magaling, magaling. Okay, so far so good. 137. Group A has a standard deviation. Let's say they took a test. Group A has a standard deviation of 1.4, while Group B has a standard deviation of 2.7 in a certain test. What can be said of the two groups? A, scores of those in A are somewhat nearer than those in B. B, Group A is more heterogeneous than Group B. B, letter C, Group B is more homogeneous than Group A. Or letter D, all of the above. Okay. Okay, may sumagot po ng A. Dito parang hati-hati po tayo. May sumagot ng A, may sumagot ng B, meron ding sumagot ng D, pero wala po atang sumagot ng letter C. Okay, so saan kaya dito yung tamang sagot? So let's discuss po. Now, tandaan po natin. In statistics, the standard deviation or SD, represented by the Greek letter sigma, measures the amount of variation or dispersion from the average. And remember, a low standard deviation indicates that the data points tend to be very close to the mean. And if your data points are closer to the mean, it means that the dispersion of your scores in general is actually low compared to that one that has a higher standard deviation. A high standard deviation indicates that the data points are spread out over a large range of values. So balikan po natin. Take note ha. Kung makikita po natin, yung standard deviation ni Group A na 1.4 ay lower sa standard deviation ni 2.7. Is letter A correct? Scores of those in A are somewhat nearer than those in Group B. Is A correct? And the answer is yes. Tama po siya. How about the letter B? Group A is more heterogeneous than Group B. When we say more heterogeneous, mas mataas po yung standard deviation niya. So, but if you could see here, yung standard deviation ni A ay mas mababa po sa standard deviation ni B. So Group A is more heterogeneous than Group B? Tama ba ito o mali?
Mali.
Ay, mali. Mali po. Group A is less heterogeneous than Group B. In fact, kung mas maliit yung standard deviation niya, kung mas closer siya, the term is homogeneous. The lower the standard deviation, the more homogeneous the scores are. The larger the standard deviation, the more heterogeneous it is compared to the other group. How about letter C po? Group B is more homogeneous than Group A. Tama po ba si C?
Mali.
Mali din po. In fact, Group B is less homogeneous than Group A. Or Group A is more homogeneous than Group B. Group B is more heterogeneous than A. Yun po dapat. So D is wrong. Letter A po yung ating tamang sagot. Alright, so marami atang nakakuha ng sagot, tamang sagot. Okay, sige. So far so good po. Pero sige lang po. Pero dito parang marami din po ata yung di nakakuha. Sige lang. Yung halaga po, learning experience. 138. Yes po, yung B at C nagkabaliktad yung mga terms nila. Mr. Garcia placed at the 99th percentile rank in the Civil Service Exam or CSE. What does this mean? Mr. Garcia's rating is 99% in that exam. B. Mr. Garcia got 99 out of 100 in the CSE. C. Mr. Garcia bested 99% of the examinees in the CSE. Or D. Mr. Garcia is a top-notcher since he got 99% of all the items. Percentile. So, let's review po. When we speak about percentile, let's to understand it further. A score percentile represents the percentage of scores that are equal or below a certain score with a given range, within a given range. Some books call it equal only, some sources use equal or below, or less than or equal to. Depende po sa reference. So for example po, the 75th percentile SAT score for incoming freshmen is 1,400. What does this mean? Di ba yung ika-75 dito, for example, lahat ng, halimbawa, dito yung ika-75th percentile, dito yun 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, until 99. There are 99 percentiles po. 75th percentile dito, this tells us that 75% of the students scored 1,400 or below. And lahat naman po ng greater than 1,400 na percentile po, dito po yun makikita sa right. So it could be said here that 75th percentile, it means that 25th or 25% rather of students scored above 1,400. So let's take a look at letter E. Is this correct? Mr. Garcia's rating is 99% in that exam? And the answer is no po. Letter B, Mr. Garcia got 99 out of 100 in the CSE. This is still
Raw score, sir.
wrong. Kasi raw score po yan. Yung letter C po ay ang tamang sagot. It means that he bested 99% of the examinees in the CSE, or his score is less than or equal to 99% of everyone who took the said examination. And letter D, Mr. Garcia is a top-notcher since he got 99% of all the items. This is unsupported by data, so we cannot say that D is correct. But again, letter C is the correct answer. Bested na lamangan, or let's say mas mataas yung score, or parang ganun po. Okay. 139. Consider a score to be part of a normal distribution. A negative z-score indicates that what? Ano nga ba yung sinasabi ng isang negative z-score? Is that score less than the mean, greater than the mean, less than the third decile, or greater than the median? Marami po sa atin ang sumagot ng letter A. Sige po, check ko po. Check po natin kung tama. When we speak about z-score, in relation to your normal curve, it is a numerical measurement that describes a values relationship to the mean of a group of values and is measured in terms of standard deviations from the mean. I think we are familiar with this. So the mean here is represented by 0, for example, standard deviation of 0. You go here, -1, -2, -3. You go to the right, it's positive, +1, +2, +3, and so on. And a z-score specifies the precise location of each x value within a distribution. The sign of the z-score, positive or negative, signifies whether the score is above the mean if it is positive. Z-score, a positive z-score indicates that a particular score is above the mean, and a negative z-score indicates that a particular score falls below the mean. The numerical value of the z-score specifies the number of the mean by counting the number of standard deviations between this by this score rather, and your mean. With such po, letter A nga po yung tamang sagot. Negative z-score, less than mean. Dahil kung magpa-positive po yan, higher than the mean. All right. So far, parang marami atang magtataas. I think hopefully no, marami po sa atin ang nakakuha nito. 140. Okay, normal curve. About how many % of the class fall between -2 standard deviations, -2 SD and +2 SD in the normal curve? Is it 99.72, 68.26, 95.44, or D, 99.85? Grabe. May nagsabi dito. Sabi ni Sir Errol, letter C, sure na sure na. Okay. Tama nga ba? So, I hope you are familiar with this. It's actually a ruling po, no? So, if you have within -1 standard deviations from the mean, meaning from -1 to 1, then the area bounded by this segments and this curve and this horizontal axis, the area here is approximately this much. Take note, this is not really exact. Some just call it 68.26%, some call it 68% only, depending on the reference and the number of significant digits they wanted to. Within -2 and 2 standard deviations, it's around 95.44%. So we are expecting that from here to here, we are expecting that the scores, that around 95.44% of the scores will be found in this range. And within -3 to 3, it's approximately 99.73%. So indeed, letter C nga po yung ating tamang sagot. Okay, yes. So good po. At least remember po tayo, no? Okay, sure yung iba. Okay, sige. It's good po. 141. Maria rejected a true null hypothesis and reported a false alternative hypothesis. What kind of error is this? Type 1, type 2, type 3, or type 4? Sige nga po, paki-comment po ng sagot natin. Letter B, type. Sabi ni Sir Jason, letter B daw. Okay. Okay, so far, to everyone who commented po, they answered B. Tama nga kaya? Yung isang true null hypothesis ay nireject mo at saka nireport mo yung maling alternative hypothesis. And let's understand these two first. Okay. Kapag sinabi po nating there are actually two errors in decision making, particularly in hypothesis testing. If the null hypothesis is true, and if take note, the null hypothesis could either be true or false, and the decision that you could have is either to reject or not reject that. If you rejected a true null hypothesis, you actually committed what we call a type 1 error or a false positive error. Tandaan po natin yan. Yung isang tama, nireject mo, type 1 po yan. Now, dito naman po, kapag mali yung null hypothesis at saka nireject mo ito, that's actually a correct decision. Because it's really good, no? It's a good decision to reject something, to reject a notion which is false. If something is true and we did not reject it, so here's the intersection, it's in fact a correct decision because something that is true should not be rejected and should be reported if possible. And lastly, if you know that the null hypothesis is false and you did not reject that, that is actually another error. And that is what you call type 2 error or a false negative error. By the way, some books call type 1 error as alpha error. Type 2 error is called beta error. So, kung babalikan po natin, nireject niya ang true null hypothesis. Is it A? Did you change your mind? Is it A, B, C, or D? Tingin nyo, B nga kaya yung tamang sagot? Nireject niya ang true null. It should be letter A po. It's in fact a type 1 error. So, sige lang po. Kung sumagot po tayo ng B, sige lang po. Bawi lang po tayo sa ibang items. Careful po. So, this is true especially in research po. Ligwak daw. Ma'am Erica, yes po. We will do po. Okay. All right. 142. Which of the following is the correct way of writing the null hypothesis? Check nyo po. Saan kaya sa letter A, B, C at saka D yung tamang pag-state ng null hypothesis? Okay, iba-iba pa rin po yung sagot natin. Notice nyo po dito HA, HA, dito HO, HO, pero ito equal, ito not equal, ito equal, not equal. Okay, so iba-iba po ata yung sagot natin. Parang hindi po tayo nagkakasundo so far. So now it's time to answer or give us the solution to this problem po. Tandaan po natin, the null hypothesis is symbolized by HO. Tandaan po natin yan. Null hypothesis is HO. Alternative hypothesis, yan po yung HA. Sa ibang books, they call it H1. So therefore po, dahil null hypothesis yung ating hinihingi, so lahat po ng may HA ay mali. So A and B, I'm sorry to say this, but options A and B are actually incorrect. So let's choose. Option C or option D? Yung null hypothesis, di ba sabi yung ating null hypothesis sa research natin, sabihin niya, there is no significant difference. We usually say that we stick with the status quo. So there is no significant difference. And if there is no significant difference, then we peg them as equal. The alternative hypothesis, an example of such, for example, if your study is the effect of biofertilizer X on plant growth, your null hypothesis is A or HO, the application of biofertilizer X to not increase the plant growth, or you stick to status quo. For your alternative hypothesis, an application of biofertilizer X increases plant growth. So you do not stick with the status quo and instead you affirm the idea that a particular change will occur. Hence, that's why HO po yung null. Letter C po yung ating tamang sagot. I hope clear po sa atin. 143. Okay, kung tatanungin ko po kayo, yung letter C po yung null, alin po dito yung tamang pag-state ng alternative hypothesis? Saan po sa A, B at saka sa D ang tamang pag-state ng alternative hypothesis po? It is letter
B, sir?
letter. Saan po dito yung tamang pag-state ng alternative hypothesis? Never mind yung C.
B, sir.
Yung letter C po, null ito. Saan yung alternative? Letter
B.
B.
B, sir.
HA. So HA is that the mean of the first is not equal to the mean
Equal
of the
to,
second. Not equal to po. Yung null usually equal. Yung alternative not equal.
Equal.
Meaning to say, there's a significant difference, there's a significant relationship, or something po, no? For example lang. 143. Okay, welcome po. A teacher is replaceable by technology, so teachers may not be needed. Do you think this is true? This is false, or maybe, or undetermined? Okay, this is. I hope that we are on the same boat. I hope na lahat tayo makakakuha nito. And the correct answer here is indeed letter. Before I
B.
give you the result, let us have this quote according to George Couros. Technology will never replace great teachers, but technology is in the hands of great teachers is transformational. We are not replaceable, but I believe po no, na kung marunong po tayong gumamit ng technology, we can make learning better for our learners. So we agree it is false. Okay po. Sabi ni Ma'am ni Miss Ortega, false 'yan. Kasi hindi na ako maglelet pag true 'yan. Oh, point. Grabe ka, Ma'am, ha? Pero may point, Ma'am. Totoo po. Thank you. 144. Technology is very useful in mathematics classrooms. Bandura mentioned conditions that are necessary before an individual can successfully model the behavior of someone else, especially, of course, in mathematics also, in our mathematics classes. Except what? Is it motivation, attention, retention, or validation? Okay, I could see a lot of these. If you answered D, let's see if you got it right. Ito po yun actually, no? According to the social learning theory on the modeling process as proposed by Albert Bandura, there are actually 4 that we should have, that should be present. The first one is attention. That is, the learners have to pay attention or give focus to the model or to the person who is trying to model something. And after giving attention, there should be what we call retention. We must be able to remember the observed behavior. After observing something, the learner should be able to remember what was modeled or what was demonstrated, and learn, and hopefully they learn that thing, and after learning it, they should be able to reproduce or make that behavior. That hence we have the third one, which is reproduction. We must be able to replicate the behavior demonstrated. So replicate means na makakaya nating gawin yung isang bagay o i-execute yung isang bagay na minodel that was modeled to us or that was exhibited or demonstrated to us. Number 4 is actually motivation. We must be motivated to demonstrate what we have learned. Hence, letter D nga po, validation, yung hindi kasali sa grupo. Validation here should be what? Should be reproduction. Okay, thank you po. All right. And I do agree also to the acronym para hindi po natin para mas madali po natin siyang ma-remember. ARMM, no? Autonomous, parang isang region dito sa Philippines, no? Take a look po para consecutive A, attention, A double R pala, ARRM. Okay, thank you po. So it's letter D po. 145. According to Dale's cone of experience, which of the following situations will students most likely learn the least? Watching a YouTube video, listen to a lecture, act out the situation, or D, participate in a demonstration. Okay. Marami po sa atin ang sumagot ng B. Okay. Yung tanong ko po, bakit po B? Bakit B po?
Listening is 20% only, sir.
Come again po?
Listening is 20% retention, I think.
Okay. So, what, according to Dale po, no, in his idea, ano po yung mahalaga, no? Paano po natin ma-ensure that most likely, no, na makaka-learn better yung students natin
When they are performing the kuan.
when they are performing it? Tama po? Or
Yes, sir. They act
by principle
out the
po?
situation.
Yes. Yes po. Thank you po. Remember, according to some studies, no, you remember 10% of what you read, like 20% of what you hear, 30% of what you see, 50% of what you see and hear, 70% of what you say and write, and around 90% of what you do. To make the long story short po, in the using Dale's principle, no, the more senses involved, the better. The more a particular learner is involved, then better, then learning becomes more permanent than if they simply read or than they simply hear or when they just see something. The more senses, the more proactive that particular learner, the more likely that he or she will learn better or learn more. So hence, listening to a lecture will actually this one, watching a YouTube video is also you will siguro, no, you will learn also least, but based on the learners, so this one involves listening, this one involves watching. So tingnan po natin, balikan po natin, watching and listening. So if you are watching around 30%, if you are listening around 20%. So you will learn more than, generally po ha, you will learn more than watching rather than on simply hearing. So in general, we will go with letter B po. Okay, salamat. And usually in B, no, it's teacher-centered. And here, usually if you just simply listen, the learner could be more of like passive. 146. What best describes the role of the teacher with technology used in mathematics classrooms? Is he a facilitator, a know-it-all, a giver of knowledge, or a demonstrator? Okay, I could see a lot of A's. And if I see a lot of A's, then you are actually right. Remember, our teacher now we are not know-it-all right now. We are more of a facilitator to review the needs, to deliver content, to respond to queries, to respond to the feelings of learners, to motivate the learners to develop certain an interest in our lesson. And usually, we are now a guide on the side. If possible, we can let them learn on their own with our guidance, if possible. We are not a know-it-all. We are not a giver of knowledge only. We are not simply a demonstrator, okay? But the best here is letter A, facilitator. Okay. 147. Teacher Hannah. Okay, wait lang po. Teacher Hannah teaches the students how to multiply binomials using algebra tiles. Is it pedagogically sound? No, yes, maybe, or never. So when we say pedagogically sound, parang, do you think using algebra tiles will help Teacher Hannah attain the objectives? Is it yes? No, yes, maybe, or never? Naaakma ba yung gamitin ito? And nakagamit na po kayo nito? Have you ever tried using algebra tiles? Sino po sa atin itong nakagamit na po ng algebra tiles sa pag-teach nito? Or baka hindi pa siguro, no? Who knows? We don't know yet. But actually, this is an example of what we call algebra tiles. So, square ito, let's say side ito x. Ito naman, may ilang x, may ilan dito? Isa, dalawa, tatlo. Mayroong 7, so plus 7. Halimbawa po. Ito, x din ito 2x. Ito, 4. So you could multiply them, no? This one could actually model 2x plus 4. And this one is x plus 7. Okay, yes po, no? So it's a good experience po ni Ma'am Janeline sa pag-teach niya ng grade 7. It's actually a good manipulative po, no? For learners to determine or to learn how to multiply binomials po. So actually, this is pedagogically sound, letter B. Okay, yes, but not in teaching daw, sabi ni Sir Kevin. Still, but at least po, in the future, who knows, no? You could teach the learners how to do this one po. Okay. So letter B nga po. 148. Teacher gone, assign 2 groups of students. One group, wait. Teacher gone, assign 2 groups of students. One group will clap every 4th count, while the other will clap every 6th count. He would like to determine at what number will they clap all together. What particular concept does he try to teach? Is he going to teach the concept of divisibility, factors, GCF, or LCM? What do you think po? Okay, halimbawa, no, ginagawa ko minsan ito sa klase. Although I'm a high school teacher po, no, so I was given a chance before to teach in the grade 3 level. And this is an example of what I employ. So actually, let's see po kung tama nga ba. Yung ito po, take note, kung magka-clap po siya every 4th count, yung isang group every 4th count, they will clap first at 4, 8, 12, 16, 20, and so on, di po ba? Yung 6 naman, syempre count siya muna 6, then plus 6, 12, 18, 24, 30, and so on. And the learners will see that actually, if we continue this, they will actually have 24 on the list, no? So, and in this case, I place here some ellipses, but actually it could be 24 there and so on. And I will ask them, okay, at what is the very first number that's common to them? And they would say 24. And I would say, and that 24 is what we call the least common multiple of 4 and 6. So letter D po yung ating tamang sagot. And after introducing to them that concept using LCM, then I define LCM. And we define LCM, and we have some more exercises related to such. So letter D po yung ating tamang sagot. 149. Mr. Hilaga would like students to understand the concept of surface area of a cube with the use of GeoGebra. Which of these will he utilize to accomplish his goal? Will he use bees, nets, fishbowl, or counters? Sige nga po. I-teach mo yung surface area ng cube. Palagay niyo po. Paki-comment po ng sagot natin. Huwag po tayong mahiya. Okay, fishbowl daw. Letter C po yung fishbowl, sir. Okay, may sumagot ng letter D, counters. No idea. Okay. Sige, sige. Letter B, nets. Letter C, fishbowl. Counters. Iba-iba po ata, no? Actually, yung bees, hindi po natin yan. In this case, we're not using it. Fishbowl, the fishbowl, no? Depend po yan, no? The fishbowl method could be used to for picking, no? Who will, for example, who will recite next, or to have your random sampling, we have to choose either nets or counters. Usually po, yung counters, yung parang mga chips po, chips, no? Are usually used to learn about sign numbers, or let's say to learn about addition or basic operations on numbers po, yung counters, no? For example, no, if they wanted, if you wish for them to learn how to add or subtract natural numbers, or let's say integers, you could actually use counters or say chips. The correct answer here is actually net po. Kapag sinabi po nating net, ito po yun, no? Ito po yung net niya. Yung isang three-dimensional figure po ay o-open, kung i-open mo po siya or express mo siya like this po, no? The learner could actually see na, okay, yung isang cube pala, to get the surface, yung isang cube, no? Para natin siyang, parang pwede natin siyang i-express bilang 6 na 6 congruent squares. Tapos sabihin mo, okay, if a certain square has a side S, ano yung area ng isang square? 'Di ba? Sabihin niya S squared. Okay, tama. But again, knowing that all of these squares are equal or congruent, how do you get the total area of the 6 squares? So you say, sir, multiply by 6. And until such time that they realize that, okay, that the formula in getting the surface area of a cube is 6s squared, where s represents the edge of your cube, or let's say the length of the side of one square. So a net is a two-dimensional representation of a three-dimensional figure that is unfolded along its edges so that each face, the figure is shown in 2 dimensions. So yung like that po, no? A net is a pattern made when the surface of a three-dimensional figure is laid out, felt showing each face of the figure. And a solid may have different nets. Just like what I am showing you right now, you have the same figure, which is a cube, but it could be expressed in different nets. This is actually very important or very useful, no? Especially, no, for students to visualize and let's say develop or let's say learn important mathematical ideas involving surface area of your space figures. Okay. GeoGebra. So GeoGebra po is an example of tool po siya, no? Actually, yan po yung next item, I think, the final item. So like this. Ito po meron pong GeoGebra na ganito. Marami po. Explore po ninyo. So it's letter B po, net. And 150, which of the following could be utilized for online synchronous classes in mathematics? Is it Google Meet, Microsoft Teams, Zoom, or all of the above? Okay. Marami po ang sumagot ng D. And if you answer D, you got it right. Actually, all of these, no? We are currently using Zoom right now. But if we wish, we could also use Google Meet and Microsoft Teams. So all of the above po. Yung Google Meet ata right now, it's not capable po ata of recording, no? Yung maganda po sa Zoom is the meetings in Zooms could be recorded right now. Ang Teams, could the meeting in Teams be recorded? Any idea po? I forgot na po. So check nyo lang po kung pwede pong ma-record yung Microsoft Teams na meeting. Okay. Okay. Do we have any questions or clarifications so far po?
Sir, may question ako.
Yes po.
Ito kasi yung mga kwan ngayon, yung usap-usap sa tungkol sa 60 units na 60 units na majorship. Ito yung naging subject ngayon sa lalo na sa Facebook, sir, yung mga yung mga courses college, tapos i-evaluate daw ng ano kung abot ng 60 units ang nakuha mo. Kasi
Kailan
yung
po yan
bagong
lumabas, sir? Kailan po yan, sir, ano?
bale started in 2017 ano siya
Ba't daw sa
Okay.
Sir,
Yes po. Okay, so letter D is the correct answer here. With that, TYVM, thank you very much. And I wish you all the best for the upcoming licensure examination for professional teachers. God bless everyone and take care po.